What does it mean to be St. Peter's Church in Redwood City? It means that our church reflects our community. It means we're called to minister to our community's needs, to love and help our neighbors. What does it mean to be St. Peter's Church in Redwood City? The answer is about time as well as place. Our parish has grown and changed as the city has grown and changed, and our parish will continue to grow and change along with the city. So, St. Peter's Church is not just who we are today. We're part of our community's history, connected to the parishioners who came before us. And we're helping to shape the community our children and grandchildren will inherit in the years ahead. St. Peter's is the sum of where we've come from, where we are, and where we hope to go. Today, St. Peter's Church in Redwood City has reached a new milepost on what we trust will be a long spiritual journey. A good time to pause, listen to voices from the past, learn from one another today, and think about our ministry in our community as the journey that began in 1864 continues into the future. The California Gold Rush of 1849 didn't just boost the American economy, it fueled explosive growth in the Bay Area. The discovery of gold brought approximately 300,000 people to California in less than 5 years. The population of San Francisco increased from a sleepy 200 in 1846 to a booming 36,000 in 1852. And all those people needed houses for their families and buildings for their businesses. Finding lumber wasn't hard. The bay was ringed by hills full of redwood trees that could be turned into lumber. The hard part was getting the lumber to the city. The best way to transport lumber was by ship. And one of the most convenient spots to load lumber onto ships was the place where Redwood Creek ran into the bay. It was here that a little port began to grow into the city we know today. It didn't take long for the rapidly developing area to organize. The county of San Mateo was established in 1856. The railroad reached town in 1863, and it quickly changed the character of Redwood City. It was cheaper and quicker to move freight on trains than on boats, and the city's business district began to build up around the depot and along the tracks. Naturally, the railroad also made travel easier for people too, and the town continued to expand.
Nobody built a railroad in those days for passenger only. Passenger became an adjunct, a physical feature of the railroad. And then, of course, just being in San Francisco helped.
At 4 p.m. on Sunday, April 10th, 1864, 4 years before the city officially incorporated, 80 people gathered in the main room of the old county courthouse to hold the first Episcopal service in Redwood City. They were led in worship by Father Giles Alexander Easton, who preached on Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 to 20, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations." Father Easton left a few memoirs of his early years.
I was born in Oneida County in western New York State in 1829. At 21, I moved to Smyrna, Delaware, where I joined the choir of Smyrna's Episcopal Church, St. Peter's. I was baptized there by Reverend S.T. Carpenter and confirmed by Bishop Lee. I was ordained in Middleton, Connecticut when I was 29, and I served several churches in Connecticut, Illinois, and Maryland. I visited California for the first time in 1854. In 1862, I was called to assist Bishop Kipp at Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, and in 1864, I was the missionary founder of 2 congregations on the peninsula. One became the Church of St. Matthew in San Mateo. The other was St. Peter's Church in Redwood City, which I named after the church in Smyrna, Delaware, where I was baptized.
The little Redwood City congregation had spirit, but it didn't have a home. For a while, the congregation met in the Congregational Meeting House and then in the public school. During the summer of 1865, the women of the congregation helped raise $500. The money was used to furnish a room in the courthouse, the parish's first permanent home, and to buy an organ. But members of the parish wanted a church building of their own. Fortunately, there was enough money left to purchase a parcel of land from J.V. Diller on what was then called Diller's Island, across Jefferson Avenue from the post office. A strawberry festival in the summer of 1866 raised an additional $75, which was used to buy lumber. The cornerstone of a new building was laid on May 4, 1867, with Bishop William Ingraham Kipp in attendance. Then, the men of the parish pitched in to construct what came to be called the Little Red Church. The San Mateo County Gazette wrote,
"The new Episcopal Church is beginning to assume shape, and although small, will be a neat and tasteful building when completed."
The building was finished on June 23, 1867, and was dedicated on June 30th. Total cost $2,142.70. The Little Red Church was modeled on the Church of the Advent in Brooklyn, Alameda County. The Little Red Church had 40 pews for rent at $40 per year. In 1867, 16 were rented, 11 at full price, 5 at a discount. In February of 1865, Reverend Dr. A.L. Brewer became St. Peter's second rector, dividing his time between Redwood City and San Mateo. The 2 congregations originally formed a single parish. After a few months, Reverend Brewer decided to devote himself full-time to the congregation in San Mateo. He oversaw construction of St. Matthew's first church building and founded St. Matthew's School. In October 1865, Reverend George Burton came to Redwood City to be the 3rd rector of St. Peter's Church and the parish's first full-time rector. In 1867, Father Burton reported to the diocese.
In accordance with the wish of the parish at Redwood City, with the consent of Mr. Brewer, and by the advice of the bishop, the existing union of the parishes at Redwood City and San Mateo was dissolved, and on the 8th of November, 1866, I received the official consent of the bishop to take charge of this parish as rector.
The original vestry of St. Peter's met for the first time on May 1, 1865. Its members included some of the community's wealthiest and most influential citizens. Benjamin G. Lathrop was chairman of the County Board of Supervisors and later helped found the Southern Pacific Railroad. His house, still standing near San Mateo County Center, is on the National Registry of Historic Places. Dr. S.S. Stambaugh was one of Redwood City's first physicians. Stambaugh Street is named for him. Among the church's first members were former Senator Milton Latham and his wife, who rode to church in a tandem carriage with a coachman in livery and a footman. It soon became clear that having a rectory would help attract priests, and that additional space could be used for meetings and social events. In 1872, the parish acquired the 5-room house next door to the church at a cost of $1,500. Soon, 4 more rooms were added at a cost of $700. The Little Red Church was sometimes busy and sometimes not. The County Gazette described some of the busy times.
Its spacious auditorium was the scene of many impressive ceremonies witnessed by the prominent church people of the county. In the 60s, the Feltons, W.J. Adams, the Selbys, and Senator Milton Latham and other notables of Menlo Park came to worship.
But after a while, other communities in the area formed their own parishes, making the longer trip to Redwood City unnecessary.
The peninsula is pretty affluent, right? And with only a couple of exceptions, Redwood City is really, I think, historically the only sort of blue-collar neighborhood or town on the peninsula. And it's been that way since its inception, right? You know, you look back at the papers and the parish was founded, and then not too short after that, there was a parish founded in San Mateo, and where did the people with most of the money go? You know, they went to San Mateo. Or then there were the folks coming to Redwood City from Menlo Park, but they didn't want to drive their carriages all that distance, so they built Holy Trinity in Menlo Park. So St. Peter's has always been, I think, very closely connected with the identity that the city of Redwood City has.
This had the effect of reducing the congregation. A parishioner painted the picture when he described his first visit to the church after moving to Redwood City several years later.
On the morning of our second Sunday, we started out and found the little red church. It was about 11 a.m., saw no one approaching, no one near, and the door was closed. My wife says, "Be quiet and don't disturb the congregation." Opening the door, we saw 3 people, the minister, his wife, and her mother.
Another parishioner, Alma Labochat, later recalled those days.
We had so many lean years when I first attended St. Peter's. Ministers came and went so fast we were constantly having a farewell tea for one and a welcoming tea for another. To show you just how true this is, I can still remember the names of 11 ministers who served St. Peter's the first 25 years I was here. And even so, there were many months in between when we would have no rector at all. When we had no rector, students from the Divinity School, then in San Mateo, would come down and hold services for us.
The minutes of the vestry for April 14, 1879, reported that no services had been held at the church for 6 months. But the church, rectory, and land were unencumbered. As one church historian put it, the church was free of debt, but also free of income. The town continued to grow, and in fits and starts, so did the church. By the time St. Peter's celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1914, there were 106 families in the parish directory. The parish had a large and active Sunday school under Supervisor F.P. Thompson and a congregation that enjoyed fellowship and socializing. In the 1920s, the vestry and rector decided to move to a rapidly developing section called the Redwood Highlands on the west side of the railroad tracks. The decision was influenced by a parishioner in the real estate business, and the deal took a while to complete. Some parishioners objected that the new location was so far from town. Alma Labochat wrote,
Property beyond the highway had opened up for homes and was being sold rapidly. So this promoter sold our vestry on the idea of taking over a piece of land he was handling and build our church out in the park, as it was called then. The idea was a good one, but the timing was very bad inasmuch as we had not been able to raise enough money to even pay a minister a small salary regularly. In order to put the deal through, he of course had to sell the idea to the treasurer of the diocese, Mr. Lee. And I think he rued the day he put his name on that document because the diocese had to assume the whole debt, and they paid out many $1,000s in interest before the deal was cleaned up.
The formerly debt-free parish borrowed heavily. The Little Red Church and Rectory were sold for $15,000, but the cost to buy new property and build a new parish hall was high. Construction began in 1925, and expenses soon overran the available resources. Within 7 years, the church was $23,580 in the red. The original plan was for St. Peter's to build a sanctuary shortly after the parish hall was completed, but there was barely enough money for one building. Alma Labochat.
We purchased the whole corner where the church and parish house now stand, and we started as soon as possible on the parish house which was to be our church for 3 or 4 years. Well, those 3 or 4 years extended to be over 20 years.
By Christmas of 1925, the new building was almost finished. On December 23rd, the Sunday school performed a Christmas program to an audience of 150. Rector Albert E. Clay held the first service on Christmas Eve. The parish hall was formally dedicated on Sunday, January 24th. The Redwood City Standard wrote,
It is the aim to make the parish building a meeting place for dances, card parties, dinners, and numerous assemblages during the weekdays, and to make it a place of worship on Sunday by a simple arrangement of draperies which completely transforms the auditorium into a church.
It was a very handsome church for Sunday worship, with a beautiful brass eagle lectern donated by the Crow family. The building was used for many other purposes then, just as it is today. It became a theater for plays, a dining room for suppers, and a great place to hold a meeting. Throughout the Depression and through World War II, the parish house was the scene of weddings, funerals, services, and celebrations. The congregation continued to nurse the dream of building a dedicated sanctuary, but the resources weren't there. Having a sanctuary looked almost out of reach when the parish was forced to sell the land they've been planning to build it on. Fortunately, a parishioner helped to keep the dream alive. Alma Labouchat recalled,
We ran into financial difficulties, so we had to sell the corner lot to a German whose home adjoined our lot on the Brewster Street side. He built a beautiful garden there, but years later, after he had passed away, the lot was up for sale again. Arthur Poole, one of our very fine vestrymen at that time, bought the lot and held it for us until we could pay him back. And that is how we were able to have a place to build our church when the time came.
Starting in the late 1940s, the parish began to feel more optimistic about its future. A number of arrows were pointing up. St. Peter's had survived a depression and a world war, and the congregation began to grow. In December of 1948, the vestry was able to pay the last installment on the lot at the corner of Clinton and Brewster. Arthur Poole sold the property back to the church for $4,000. The final payment of $800 was made possible, predictably, by a gift from the Women's Auxiliary. Another important event occurred in 1948, shortly after the parish called Reverend C. Peter Bowes to be its rector. Father Bowes took on the task of finally building the sanctuary, which the parish had been waiting for since 1925. The parish hired Kingsford Jones in Menlo Park to be the architect of the new building. The chief contractor was Howard J. White, Incorporated, of Palo Alto. For the basic form of the sanctuary, Jones chose the traditional shape of a barn, rectangular, spacious, and open, with exposed roof beams. This fit the dimensions of the lot and was a visual reminder of where Jesus' life began. So in a sense, the sanctuary's construction was a little like a barn raising. The design of the new sanctuary was unique for its time. The walls and roof were made of preformed panels of concrete blocks. Each panel was hoisted into place and secured in a framework of steel beams. The job went quickly, like a good barn raising should. Construction began in earnest just after Christmas in 1951, and by mid-January, the shell of the building was complete. The last piece of the puzzle was fitted into place on January 17, 1952. On April 13, 1952, Easter was celebrated for the last time in the parish hall. In December 1952, Christmas was celebrated for the first time in the new sanctuary. Cost to build the new sanctuary was budgeted at $100,000. In the end, the building and its furnishings cost about $150,000. The money was raised in an energetic, parish-wide canvass. Beyond its unique construction, several other features made the new sanctuary special. Among the most striking were stained glass windows by the renowned French artist Gabriel Lor. whose work can be seen in churches around the world. The stained glass windows were installed in July 1956. The altar is made of natural stone and, in keeping with tradition, is built directly on the ground. The beautiful bas-relief just inside the sanctuary door was made by Francis Rich and installed in 1957. Parishioner Anne D. Stefano designed the candle holders and had them made locally at the Franciscan Forge. The Della Robbia bas-relief and the creche that's part of every Christmas were purchased by Father Bose on his extensive travels in Europe. The building of the new sanctuary marked the beginning of the new phase for St. Peter's. Several decades of sustained growth. The post-war baby boom was beginning, and throughout America, churches of all denominations were the beneficiaries. Our parish was no exception. Beginning in the 1950s, St. Peter's welcomed more kids than we'd ever seen before, and their families. In 1955, we had 350 students enrolled in Sunday school. Confirmation classes had almost 100. In those days, it was fully expected that when a family came to church, Mom would wear a hat and gloves. Dad would wear a suit. Girls would wear dresses, and boys would wear ties. This boom in Sunday school students created a need for two things: teachers and classrooms. Teachers were parish volunteers.
When did you start teaching Sunday school? When was that?
A couple days after I started.
Caroline Arnold, who is 94, almost 95, she was one of the first persons that welcomed me, and she was in her 40s then. I mean, she was young, and she got me started teaching Sunday school. I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm not that great theologically," but she said, "Well, we'll start you with first grade." Every room upstairs had a class.
For 50 years I taught Sunday school. 50. I
have to say, teaching Sunday school was a real eye-opener to me. At my Methodist church, when I was growing up, we had to memorize scriptures and we did a lot of stuff, but you didn't really get into the meat of it. And preparing for classes for the kids, especially when I taught the 5th, 6th graders, combo class that we had, it really made you examine your faith and read more into the Bible instead of just a Sunday scriptures.
Classrooms were harder to find than teachers. In the early 1960s, Father Bo's successor, Father John Haviland, drew up plans that added upstairs and downstairs classrooms onto the south side of the parish hall, extended the north side to include new offices, and gave the congregation the plant we have today. The architect on the expansion project was John S. Rolls, who also designed the 8 mosaics that run along the Brewster side of the building. The top 4 mosaics represent the 4 Gospels. The bottom 4 symbolize the vows of baptism. The expansion was begun in 1961 and finished in 1962. It was dedicated in April 1962 by Bishop James A. Pike. In some ways, Redwood City was a different town in those days.
We were a very small community where you could walk downtown barefoot as a kid. Wonderful stores that you could go into where you could get anything you needed. There were Woolworths and Walgreens and J.C. Penney's and Levy Brothers and shoe stores and whatever. And it was very safe to walk down there. A number of family drugstores of families in Redwood City.
There were lots up in with vacant lots. We bought a vacant lot for $7,900. An acre and a quarter.
Looking at the downtown, I remember there used to be a penny store downtown, and now that's all changed. You know, I think the community itself, there's a lot more community involvement in the downtown thing, all the things they have at the courthouse.
Tell us a few ways in which the town has changed.
Good night. It's grown. It has grown.
More traffic, definitely. No place to park wherever you go. And every town seems to have is all restaurants, nothing else anymore. And I don't know, they say change is good, but sometimes it's not so good.
In some ways, we were a different church.
For all the course of my time, it was quite large, obviously then, which really was the need to build the new church, because what's the parish hall now wasn't containing everybody, and they had 3 services, 8 o'clock, 9:30, which generally was the children's service, and then 11 o'clock. So they needed to build and expand, and they did. And of course, for a long time, the church was really quite a bit larger, and now it's quite a bit smaller again.
And there was so many people coming to St. Peter's, sometimes they set chairs up in the aisles, in the aisle along, you know, the walls, when it was ever any big affair.
There's a different atmosphere now where we were, if you belonged to a church, you pretty much went every week unless there was something, you were ill or there's something very special. But it seems as though the young people don't necessarily come every week. I mean, we consider them members and so on, but they don't come every week.
Well, it was full. And there was a church store, and there were lots of things for the children to do. There was a children's choir. There was a couples group. We played bridge. We had progressive parties, progressive dinners where we had to, like rallies, where you had to find your way to the next house, which was a lot of fun. Joan DeBrine put those together. We had a volleyball team where men and women, where we played in a league. And that was a lot of fun. There were a lot of young people, but there were older people too. And the church store was a wonderful place with all kinds of things, books for children, but also some beautiful jewelry that was handcrafted. And we loved to eat, which we still do, and had lots of dinners and parties and fashion shows and whatever we could think of to get together.
It was a kind of a close-knit group of old Redwood City people, many of the bankers and lawyers and the doctors, and I think of all the older people. I think now it's become a much younger group that
well, that's only certain to be at times.
Make more noise at service than when we quiet ones were there.
I think it's less formal. I think it's the service is less formal. The children aren't sort of kept in the pews with their parents and have to be quiet and so on. They certainly make much more noise now.
Well, it's always in a state of change, I think. In what ways? Well, just the congregation changes, of course, and then you meet new friends.
But in many ways, the parish that we know today is very much the same church that it's always been. Parishioners who came 50 or 60 years ago describe a church with the qualities we cherish today. Ask what attracted them, and they'll start by telling you that St. Peter's offered a warm welcome to everyone who came.
I had a 6-month baby and no car.
Oh my.
And I was looking for churches. I looked all over Palo Alto, none of them appealed to me, one single bit. I walked, the last one I hit was St. Peter's. They weren't a church yet. It was way, way, way back. And I joined the church right then and there.
So what was it that was appealing about St. Peter's?
They welcomed me. They made me feel like I was something and that it would be nice to have me.
Actually, my granddaughter, Stephanie, was baptized here. And that was the first time I entered the church, and I liked it. And then when she got to be, I didn't come anymore after that until she was about maybe 6 or 7, and her mother brought her here to go to church, and they invited me to come along. And so I did, and I enjoyed the church. And then all of a sudden, in a couple of years, her mother started working, and on Sundays, and could not bring Stephanie to church. So I volunteered. And then Stephanie got involved in things. She was an acolyte, and then she joined the spy group. And then I kept coming to church with her. And then after, when she got older and she started working, she worked on Sunday, so she couldn't come. But I kept coming because I liked the church. I liked the people and the feeling in the church.
And I had friends that had come to St. Peter's, so I came, brought Tracy. I think she was about 7 years old. And I just fell in love with the liturgy, the feeling, Father Gebhardt, the whole service, and knew that this was a place where I wanted to bring my family.
We moved up in the summertime, and at Christmas, Rod had said, I just want to go, you know, he was the Episcopal, I just really want to go to church Christmas Eve, will you come? And I said, well, okay. So my first service was Christmas of 1965, a Christmas Eve service. And just coming through the door of St. Peter's, it was just like coming home. I mean, there was just a sense of peace settled over me.
I decided I liked the 8 o'clock service, and the people there were very friendly, and so that's what I do now. I still go to the 8 o'clock service.
And we, you know, don't have the wealthiest people at our church, but we've got some great people. So.
We've got the nicest.
Yeah, the nicest. I have to say, everybody's always saying, if they've moved away or gone far away, say, oh, I wish you'd come and go to church with me. Or when I go somewhere else, that's the only time I get to go to church, except when I'm on a search committee and you go out and do your things. But the churches that I have gone to, I never get that sense of really welcoming. I know when we were on one search that we went up to Paradise, this little tiny church, which you'd think a small church would be pretty, you know, close-knit. And yes, we were strangers, and there were 3 of us, you know, on there. But people would just turn to the person next to them, you know, and they'd look at you. You didn't feel like you were welcomed. And I really feel here that that's one thing we do well. We're so happy to see people and want to make them comfortable.
St. Peter's was a parish built on good fellowship and run by active volunteers.
There was just a feeling of family here, very much a feeling of family.
Well, I just think that I get a sense of fellowship when I'm here by all the different people. And having a chance to really talk in coffee hour and get to know people on a different level, I think is also very, very exciting.
That makes you feel a part of the group. And also, if you're volunteering in the church, that makes you feel that it's part of your, you know, you own part of it, kind of.
Oh, I don't know, I got involved. I guess I've been a little bit of everything, been an usher, been a canvas manager, being, I think 3 terms on the vestry, and senior warden twice.
Long way back, that seems like, isn't it?
What else? I was treasurer for a while.
No kidding.
You know, the routine where you become a little too involved in church, and then it gives you an excuse for going in the background again.
Well, I was of course, in the ECW, and we had a gift shop at the time that I came here.
I think when we had the thrift shop, I think that was one of my enjoyable parts.
Oh, Father Haverland had asked me, you had to be asked by the rector to join the altar guild. You didn't volunteer or anything. Well, they had a big altar guild, huge altar guild. Oh, 35, 40 women.
Wow.
And you were on a week. Helen Murphy was my first one that chairman of the week that I was on. And anyway, there were at least five people on. And you didn't have a choice of which service you were going to serve at. You had to know how to do them all, in the church and in the chapel. And you did what you were told. You didn't say, well, I'm not going to work at 8 o'clock on Sunday. If that was the way it was, that was the way it was. It was very regimented. And that was okay. You knew all that when you went in, so. and I've been in there ever since.
I used to enjoy the luncheons that the altar guild had, and we'd always have a drink. It was kind of nice. We don't do that anymore.
Well, in the church, I'm very involved in visiting shut-ins, and I visit some shut-ins in my own area who aren't members of the church. I seem to sort of been drawn to that kind of commitment.
When I first came, they didn't have a nursery nanny, and we had a whole bunch of babies and young people. And the mother started a nursery guild, and it was called St. Anne's. Mary's mother was Anne. And so we worked it out that we only had to miss church once a month. You know, you didn't have to serve that much. There were so many kids, you needed at least 3 moms up there. So that was my first experience.
And you have to look after your friends.
And we were an open-minded, inclusive spiritual home for people from different faiths and backgrounds.
There, the warmth and friendship, friendliness of the church.
Beautiful services. One I remember after Christmas where we all had candles, and it was sort of like the light of the world from the Book of John.
I tried several churches after I started going with Stephanie here in the beginning, and with her mom too. And I tried several, and I could never find a niche. I have to admit I'm a Lutheran.
Well, we all have our feelings.
I know. But I've tried different churches. And in fact, when I go to Santa Cruz, where my daughter lives, I go to her church, who's a non-denominational type. And I enjoy it there. But when I come back to here, there's a feeling of peace in this church for some reason. I don't know what it is, if it's the church itself or the people or there's something. It feels good. That's why I keep coming back.
What do you think is the biggest thing that the church has provided for you over the years?
A safe place to worship. And I've learned a lot. I've learned an awful lot.
I love the liberal atmosphere about the Episcopal Church, that you can have doubt, you can have many doubts and bring them forward, and you're still welcomed here. I love that.
And then talked to Chip, who lived across the street from me, and thought, I have to come back. And it was like coming home. You know, I loved Good Shepherd. I did a lot of work up there. But this was home. So it was a good feeling to come back.
When we look around today, we see many of the same qualities. We see a parish that's every bit as spiritually inclusive.
I like it. I just like that I feel welcome, and I don't have to be perfect, and I don't even have to, even in my beliefs, like we talked about at the women's retreat, I talked about how, you know, I have questions about my own faith. I don't feel like I'm I guess I have some questions about faith, and that's okay. That was okay. I wasn't like shunned and sent away, or no dinner for you.
Because this is a place where the questions I haven't been able to ask anywhere else, it's not just that I can ask them, it's that I'm encouraged to ask them.
Like, when my dad first came here once, he said that it wasn't like his church because he actually heard other people, like, making noise and, like, breathing and stuff, because he grew up in the church. And he said, like, no one talked. It was just, like, silent, and only the priest talked, so we liked it.
In Redwood City is kind of a neat place because you meet all kinds of people here. And I think that's reflected at St. Peter's, and that my life has been greatly enriched by the people that I've met and interacted with here, because they come from all different walks of life, and we have people from different cultures, from different parts of the world, different socioeconomic backgrounds. And, you know, in that respect, it's a much richer experience than being in a place where everybody's kind of the same.
Some things are still a leap of faith for me.
But it means more to me than it used to. And I think going to the Bible study that Deacon Skip started, that really, I really appreciated knowing more about the context in which we're doing things. And so I think that helped. And the ritual, I just love ritual. So I just love the foot washing at Lent and, you know, the Seder dinner and all of those things, the incense.
It's so rich, I mean, you know.
And I grew up in a high church, so I'm kind of used to that.
That was the other thing. It was very familiar to me and very comforting in a way that a lot of the formality is the same as the Catholic faith. So without the other stuff I didn't like.
Yeah, I was not raised in the Episcopal Church. I was not raised in any church. So, you know, we came here just because, you know, Sydney said it was really fun and you should check it out. And here we are. It's been really great.
Coming into it, you know, we mentioned a few times, you know, I don't really have much of a religious background. I mean, I'm probably the worst thing coming for her parents. My mother's Jewish, my father was Protestant, neither of them practicing, and then I married a Catholic Irish girl. My friends across the street, in order to play with them and continue to be with them, I would go to church with them, which was Lutheran. So I'm kind of this amalgam of what does it all mean. St. Peter's in particular, coming here, you know, sitting down and going, okay, you know, having an open mind, let's see what this has to teach me. I think that the best part has actually been, I really am enjoying Mother Susan, and when Skip gets to do it, the sermons. They're really thought-provoking.
I think the Lord is delighted that there are so many different faith traditions and so many religions, because there's something for everybody. And I think we need to celebrate that. At the same time, I think we need to offer what we offer, because I think we offer a wonderful solution for a lot of people.
And one is holding a whole lot of different people and a lot of different views all at once.
Yeah. I wouldn't be a rector on a bet.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is holding all this at once.
And creating a sacred space within it.
And holding sacred space there for all of these places. Yes.
I don't know. You know, but St. Peter's has just been so important to me and such a big part of my life. I mean, you know, having my son and the church just being very supportive. You know, besides the casseroles, we feel very loved and well cared for. And hopefully others feel the same from us. And it's just hard to imagine my life without St. Peter's, and I just can't imagine it without St. Peter's.
It's sort of an interesting dichotomy in the Bay Area that you have probably one of the most unchurched demographics in the country, and yet you have a population that consistently, when asked questions about spirituality, consistently reflect back a desire for a deeper spirituality, or a spirituality that can help to better guide their lives and the lives of their children.
It's a new world. So what they are forgetting in the midst of all of that is that this is still their community. This can still be their community where they gather and are supported and loved and cared for no matter what happens, no matter where they are in their spiritual journey, right? We can help you. We can be there with you. We stand with you no matter what.
I like when we, on Palm Sunday, when we hold all the branches. That was really fun.
We see a parish where fellowship and a volunteer spirit are still the fuel of parish life.
I do all the scheduling of the worship stuff for the lay readers and the lambs, which we need more lambs, and the acolytes and training the acolytes, and Hopkins Manor service. And when Skip's away, I do the leading. I mean, it's not all that much now. In years past, I did a lot more.
Yeah, I was involved in the search committee. I was
I'm doing ushering and greeting. I've been doing that.
You did the website.
I helped with the website.
You helped get the website updated.
The latest one.
I'm on the vestry now, helping out with some liturgy, working with the liturgy groups, and working on the 150th anniversary, helping with some of the pieces of that, helping with the children's program to try to just get that restructured a bit so that we can involve more people in the church. That's it.
So Megan, you're really not involved at all? With
I'm
anything?
not. No, not really. Not really.
That's the other thing that I think that we need to remember as the church is to be tremendously thankful for the people who do come and get involved. And because you look at the pace of life on the Mid-Peninsula, and if someone's coming to church, and if someone's coming to church and bringing their kids, just the fact that they're there is a big commitment.
We've just been here for so many things through the years, different kinds of functions that, you know, really it's like let them loose through the door and they know every little nook and cranny around the whole facility. So it's just very, very, it's nice to feel like a church, as a parent, I want the church to feel accessible and comfortable. I want them to appreciate the sanctuary as being sacred, but I also want them to feel like, hey, there's our friends, I can run down the hall at coffee hour, and it's just like another place that they know and are super comfortable.
People like it here, people like one another, people reach out to each other. There is a real caring. I love that they do every Sunday the blessing for the birthdays, the anniversaries, the travel. You not only get individual time, as it were, then you can talk to people. Gee, how many years? Where are you traveling to? There's a constant conversation going on in the church between people. There's just a caring that was here the first day we arrived, and it has been maintained for the last 12 years.
We don't have our parents around here, and it feels like most of the people in our everyday life that we interact with are in our same age group. So one great asset has just been through the years, both of the kids connecting with senior members here and having these surrogate grandparents, and, you know, just seeing more of a range and diversity, particularly with regard to age group. You know, just having that impact has been really nice, right? You've had some good.
Maddie had Shirley Royer, who took a real shine to her. She had her over for tea a couple of times at her house. You know, years ago when Mad was younger.
Yeah.
She was wonderful to Maddie. So yeah, I think that's another a real benefit is the generational thing, the intergenerational interaction. It's great.
There's a kind of a gift or a knack to being A, so helpful, and B, so modest, you know.
Well, I do it because I love, you know, the people here. They're like a family. And they're just what I do. I'm one of those people that like to be doing. And there are a lot of people here who do a lot of things.
The idea is that at the Eucharistic celebration, the priest is not the celebrant. The community corporately celebrates. And as such, the gathering around the table facilitates that. And I think it creates a very different experience of being the church. The church isn't about the priest standing up there doing it for us or being the church for us. We are all the church, and we are all priests.
Last year was probably for me a really crucial point in my understanding about the importance of St. Peter's as a community and family for me. So it goes back to when my husband passed away in January of last year. And I think that, I mean, I knew that the St. Peter's family is a very caring and loving family, but I think that the outpouring of support in many different ways, whether it be the individual messages from people to everybody, you know, just helping out when we did our celebration of life for my husband here and a reception afterwards, and just such outpouring of really genuine caring and support and love for me and my family at that time just really helped me solidify even more about, you know, how important and how much I feel like this is a really wonderful family and community for me and my kids.
St. Peter's is a parish where our commitment to children and youth is stronger than ever.
It was pretty much Thomas who had started questioning, you know, going, what is this about God? What is this about church? And what do we do? What do we not? And as parents, we started thinking, well, if you're going to make a decision about a religion at some point in your life, you probably need to be educated in a religion. And Trish looked it up and started trying researching what churches in the community kind of fit with our social beliefs as well as spiritual beliefs. And St. Peter's was that.
So St. Peter's is a place where our kids can safely meet other adults in the community, and it's a nice place to have. It's become our village. You know that saying about it takes a village to raise children, and so I feel like with some of the other moms that I've met here, I would have no problem at all, you know, calling them in a pinch.
For us, I think it's raising them in a community that believes in God and a place to explore that belief on their own, and a chance to do it with other families around them. They're hiding. But I think we've really found a community here that is pretty open and welcoming to others, and I think that's a really important community that we want them to be a part of. And it's a chance to learn that they're part of something bigger. And I think for all of those reasons, it's nice to learn some of the basic values of the Christian faith. And we do that together in godly play when we can, which is, it's just a good chance for reflection each week with them.
I think it's a connection to just a spiritual community, because the kids, we have other communities, you know, we have friends, we have family in the area, we have activities that we do, but it's not spiritual in nature. And so these guys now have a group of people where they can talk about things. You know, they can talk about God, they can learn what that means for them. And that's important to us.
One thing that's been really nice is that since these guys live 50% of the time with their dad and 50% of the time with me, one really cool thing about St. Peter's is that it's been a place where dad is welcome, and you know, we can come here even on every Sunday, even when it's not, you know, quote, my Sunday. And it's just been a place to kind of give us like another place to be a family and to kind of to fit in and be a family. So it's been very special.
Well, and I think the whole thing about inclusiveness of St. Peter's, I mean, that to me was very attractive, of course, when we started to come to St. Peter's, and I think that was also part of what we were doing, or trying to do at least, with the youth, and help them really feel that as well, and help them feel like they could bring others, and that others that they might bring would also feel that openness and invitation to be a part of, you know, whoever they were, whatever their background was, whether they had gone to church before or not, just really knowing that it was great. We just love to have you and welcome you. So
I love the youth group. It's so fun. That's how I first came, like, for the youth group. Sydney's older sister Harper invited me over to go to it, and then I just had a lot of fun running around the church and playing Blind Man's Bluff, and it was really fun. So I just came again, and then we started to come.
It's had like the youth group, and the pastors have always been like more accepting of the children than a traditional church, I think. So I think that was a big part of us because our family has 2 kids. So,
well, I really liked the youth group because we always have fun. We don't really always like go places and do stuff, but even like when we're here, we just like talk and play games and eat food. It's fun, and like I've gotten to know a lot of other people that like aren't like my age too.
So the youth group in particular has been kind of a really good middle ground where she gets to, experience the church in more of a, how I envision the church, which is a place to meet a lot of friends and have, commonality. So she's meeting a lot of the other kids in the church, and it's working out really well, yeah. So then when you just come to church, it's not just going through the motions, doing the service, you see friends, and you see other families that you have stuff in common with.
I really like coffee hour.
You like the coffee?
No. I like the coffee. Sugar.
Oh my.
What do you like about it? What's different?
We get to know the people even better at coffee hour.
Yeah.
I get to play with my friends. And that's what I really like about it.
St. Peter's is a very important part of my life. It's not an afterthought in any way. It's not like I have nothing else to do on a Sunday. This is how I plan my Sunday. How does anything else fit in around church?
And that connection and, a place for our kids to be able to be in a safe and loving environment and have an opportunity to then grow up together with other kids and just sharing values, and kind of that to me was also important when I was growing up. So being able to have a semblance of that for my kids was also very important.
And the welcome that we extend to everyone is still our guiding principle as a parish.
I had met a deacon who was in Berkeley and recommended Amy Lawrence, who was the associate rector at the time here. And so I came here because of Amy, and the first Sunday I came in, there was what we say every Sunday at the beginning, and I'm sure you've probably heard this, no matter who you are or where you are in your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. And I felt like I was at home.
It's like your family, and you know the people, and you actually feel like you know the people even if you really don't.
We thought it was time to find a church close by to us, and because we would see the signs for St. Peter's over here, we called Father Chip, and we told him that we were looking for a church in the local area, and we wanted to meet with him and visit St. Peter's. And so he was super welcoming to us, and that's how we found our way here.
It's one thing to talk about being open and accepting, and then you actually get into the organization and not really. St. Peter's is unbelievably open and unbelievably welcoming of anybody.
What do you remember about coming to St. Peter's for the first time?
How welcoming, how warm everybody was. The humor that we found was kind of a joyful experience. And everybody seemed to know each other and like each other. There was a sense of camaraderie. I guess you can call it family also. So it was just very comfortable, and people just kind of reached out to us and welcomed us.
What I wasn't expecting was to find home, because I had been home in Marin for such a long time, and for 20 odd years. And to be able to walk in the door here and have this overwhelming sense of being suddenly home was a remarkable thing. It was actually something of a shock.
After we were here for like 2 Sundays, during the week, I saw this lady coming up the hill, and I said, Sandy, there's some little old lady coming up the hill. She can hardly make it. And she says, go find out. But I said, no, I think, and she was coming to our house, and it was Caroline with a pie.
Wow.
What was it, apple pie. Yeah.
Well, there's a definite warmth here and an acceptance of just about anybody who walks through the door. And if they stay, I think they find that warmth and acceptance without very much judgment here. I've certainly played in many churches, and I've gone to, this isn't the denomination I grew up with, and I don't remember, even in my upbringing, a place feeling as warm and as inviting as St. Peter's has.
I think that in liturgy, ultimately, we need to strike a balance between awe and community, fellowship.
Yeah. Would you exclude anybody from communion?
Never. No. I don't believe that Jesus ever excluded anyone. He never said, show me the card that says that you were baptized or confirmed or anything. And that's very, very important to me. It's got me into trouble a couple of times.
I feel like I've been here forever. It's just you automatically feel like you're at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is where you've been like your whole life.
That was my sense of it, was being at home. And I don't think that there's one thing that I could say made it home. It's not just the building. It's not just the fact that Skip was standing at the front door waiting for me to arrive. It's not just that people were welcoming or that coffee hour was fun or any of those things. It's just everything about it felt home.
In the 21st century, the character of Redwood City will continue to change, as it has since the days of the gold rush.
What's the biggest issue right now? Housing. I mean, just housing is so expensive right now. That is probably the biggest issue that is really, really challenging people. And the people we see, because we see folks who are working poor. I mean, these are folks who are working, but they're on the lower end of the income and struggling when that rent goes up, or, they can't find another place.
What I see now distresses me because there are so many apartment buildings, so many more people coming into Redwood City, and that will be coming into Redwood City. And I'm worried about the schools, how they're going to accommodate them, how our roads and our waters and all of our electricity, etc., is going to accommodate them.
From the elementary school district, which is the K-8, and then the high school district, are going to have a real challenge coming up here because so much more housing is being built within Redwood City that I think they're going to run out of space, and we're going to get really crowded. So from a community aspect, looking forward in the future, I think that's going to be something that needs to be addressed.
What you've seen a lot of times is the bust and boom cycle, with the first bubble bursting in 2000, 2001, the second one bursting in 2008. So you've had this up and down thing, and you've got people who have never been poor that are suddenly poor and don't know what to do about it. You've got people who have always been poor and are just getting poorer. And you've got people that have suddenly become rich, and now what do you do?
Do you see those two poles pulling apart as some people become more wealthy, many more people become poorer? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know if I see it pulling apart more than it is, because I already think it's a pretty extreme gap already. So, coming back to what I was mentioning about future planning, the idea, this whole thing about trying to help people build assets sort of is kind of the concept. And, when we're talking about building assets, we're talking about, being able to have $5,000 in your savings account, like that we're talking about that basic about build assets. We're not talking about major, investment, but those kinds of basic things as small steps towards helping people.
We're not San Francisco, we're not Burlingame, or San Mateo even. We're Redwood City.
And this means that the challenges we face as a parish are changing too.
It's still a vibrant congregation. It's still, you've got kids, you've got life in it, but you do have a fairly old plant, and so it's you've got this old traditional church that has seen 150 years of differing worship and differing styles, but it's still being used and still moving forward.
But I think that a place like St. Peter's is in a really good position to emphasize that big tent approach, that this is a place where different people, because there's so many different people in the community of Redwood City, can come together and share their differences and find commonality through those differences.
I just gave Susan an article out of the Week magazine, and Ireland today, as a largely Roman Catholic, 18% of Roman Catholics now go to Mass. 18.
I think it has a lot of growth, but
Potential.
But the thing is that there's no recruitment, like people to go out and recruit.
Well, having been most of my career in public relations, we should go out there selling our service and selling the fact that we have a nice community. Just come and sit down and listen.
Probably put more publicity about us because it's so welcoming and homey. It's just nice to see like other people come because it is really small. There isn't a lot of people that come. I counted today. There was like only 29 people, but I hope that there's more people who can experience like the family and the joy that we have, and just come to know the other Redwood City people better.
I think that it would probably benefit from having more perspectives and ideas, but I also like how it is a bit smaller than a modern day church, like what people think of churches now. I think that kind of sets us apart a little bit because we went to church when Grandpa was here, and there were so many people. It was like huge. I was like overwhelmed. I think it could definitely benefit from a few more people, but I also like how it is like a bit smaller.
Everybody knows
like everybody kind of knows everybody. It's very like personal in that regard. So.
I think the growth is important, but I remember when we were on the vestry, we kind of looked at that. Do we want to be a huge church? And we decided we don't. And so I don't think we want a huge, maybe the congregation that we have right now is about right, if we could maybe involve people a little bit more.
St. Peter's has always had people who do outreach. There's, Hopkins Manor Ministry, and there's been Maple Street, and there's been a lot of different activities. And the thing is, I think it's just, you need a critical mass, and sometimes we don't have that.
But I don't know exactly how to do it other than to have some events that try to publicize something out in the community somehow to get people to come.
Father Jones was here towards the end of his however long, 15 or 20 years that he was. I was one of the younger people there, and I was approaching, in my late 40s, almost 50, and you've got to have that going or things will go up. And I remember John Dilling, one of our old curmudgeonly fellows, said, if we don't get the right priest in here, he says, I'll be the last one, but turn out the lights, the party's over, He said, you've got to energize people and make them want to come. And I don't know, like I say, we're welcoming, but we just maybe need a little bit more commitment on people's parts.
So I think it's getting them to come and join us for smaller things, whether it's, just singing for caroling, or maybe, like we had a couple friends who joined us for that in December. And, just kind of getting introduced to little parts of the church without feeling like they're committing every week.
I would say getting people, especially young people, because that's where it's at. It's the same as, I compare it with our sorority, it's the same thing. You have to keep getting young people in, which we did not do, because the older ones either are dying off or they don't come anymore because they're older, and it's a different world.
Children are the most important thing, I think.
Well, I think unity in the church, unity of all the age groups, and the programs for the children. That's really important for the young ones and the older children, because they're the future of the church.
I think the priorities is including the young families and the children, that the music and the liturgy for their service in particular meet their needs and be something that they can relate to.
When we got a new priest, and every time, we all talk about growth. And I would love to see it the way it was when I first came. a thriving thing. And I don't know, it's a whole different paradigm, the way people treat their faith or how it is. It isn't really an outgoing thing. Maybe it's a more personal thing. I know a lot of I'm very gratified to see the young families that are coming, and getting involved.
Are you like Chairman Mao? Do you have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan?
I don't. My plan right now is just to get the congregation, build up the community of the congregation, and then just get us out there into the community.
And I've kind of seen things, it's kind of like when you're in a school system, this happens too. Things keep circular, it's very circular. Hey, we need to do this. We need to grow the church. That seems to always be the thing that people talk about, is growing the church. And I'm kind of with Maddie on this one. I mean, I think we would welcome more participants, but I think we are who we are. And, I don't see making huge changes, because I think that would really, you might make others uncomfortable. And, there's a lot of lifers here who go to this church, and, they have built it to be what it is. And I think it's really important to respect the history of this church. And I would love to just reach out to the immediate community a little more. I mean, when Jeff was talking about how we notice most of their friends don't go to church, I think there's a lot of folks looking for something that they may not realize it's right in their backyard, that there is this church that is very welcoming, and, you can acolyte in your flip-flops, and it's really comfortable. And, I think what people think of church is something serious and formal. And while we have the great historical liturgy and it's traditional, it's still very welcoming. And I think I love that. It is welcoming to all traditions. I grew up really with no spiritual education. And, Jeff had a really strong Lutheran background. And it's nice for us as parents now to come here and raise our children in, yet a new denomination, and grow and learn with them.
And I think what's shifted a little bit, perhaps, and this is maybe getting more to the heart of your question, is that that this church in this day and age has begun to realize that it's not just our own community that we need to focus on, but the community at large, that we're embedded in this community around us.
It's a certainty that the pace of change will accelerate. Where will that lead St. Peter's? For more insight, we assembled a panel of experts on the future.
All right, so Lauren, do you think like 15 or 20 years from now, do you think Redwood City is going to be bigger, more people, or smaller, fewer people?
I think it's going to be more people, because the population is already increasing now, and it's a desirable place to live, so I think it'll be bigger.
I think bigger as well, because of the location, and also San Francisco is just about an hour away, so that's a very desirable location. So it will attract many people.
I think there's also going to be more people because of the location, like they said. And also there's things to do around the city and in the city. So there's things for people of all ages. The downtown's really nice, and there's lots of sports and different activities.
If there's more people, Ben, what do you think here? This is a math question. If there's more people coming to town and there's only so much space, do you think houses are going to be more expensive or less expensive?
They'll probably be a lot more expensive because there isn't much room for more residential.
Right. So,
and it's going to be in very high demand because there's not a lot, and a lot of people are starting to move in.
Stuff like food and clothes and toys and stuff like that. More expensive or less expensive?
Probably more expensive, because if there's more people, they'd raise the price of the things because there's less of them.
Yeah, also it seems to be getting more expensive to raise kids because colleges are more expensive. And also, if you want them to go to a private or a public school, and activities that they're doing outside of school also depends, too.
So, Caroline, what do you think would make the world a better place?
I don't know. There's lots of things that could be fixed.
Pick one, yeah.
Maybe just lowering the prices on some things so people can afford them, and then they wouldn't have to be so, in need.
What can you do to make that happen?
Donations could be one.
I see.
So like if people, like if you could just donate your clothes that you grew out of.
Lauren, what do you think would make the world a better place?
I would probably say less violence and
Oh,
stuff.
that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you have in mind as to how you can help fix that?
Like raise awareness for like what's happening in some of the smaller countries that people don't really care about in America and stuff. That like people don't really know about.
Education, in other words, keeping
and,
people informed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben, what do you think? What would make the world a better place?
Well, there's lots of things, but I think focusing on the teen population and the next generation and making sure that they have good hearts and they have the right ideas and education to go out into the world and innovate and be the next Nelson Mandela's or presidents.
I think that making healthy food more affordable would be good because, like, I know if I go to In-N-Out, you can get a burger for like $2, but that's not very good for you, and that will probably cause health problems if that's all you eat, especially if that's all you can afford. So that, in the long run, is actually worse for you. But, like, I know my mom tries to buy, like, mostly organic fruit and stuff, but that's pretty expensive, especially if you aren't making very much money.
Ben, when we were saying earlier how stuff is more likely to cost more than cost less, and do you think that contributes? Does that make it harder for people who don't have a lot of money?
Well, yeah, most likely. But I also think that the minimum wage and average pay will go up with the price of material goods.
Well, in Redwood City, I would say everything's really expensive because it's a good location. And a lot of people want to live in the area and be in the area, but they can't afford it. So I would probably say more affordability in some way.
More affordable places to live?
And like...
More affordable good food?
Yeah, and like gas prices are pretty high here.
If, like, we go to Toys R Us for presents, and there's this camp out over under the bridge of the freeway. And so they don't have anything but chairs and a couple of bags and stuff to lay under.
You think there's a lot of homeless people?
Yeah. Probably from, like illegal stuff, probably from, like, drugs or, like, something like that, or even just if they ran out of money.
Well, I know, like, in my school newspaper, there was, like, an article about the homeless teens that go to our school. So I think that would be important because especially, like, as a teenager, I know that I don't think I would be able to, like, support myself really yet. So I think those would be good people to help.
So trying to tie it together, Caroline, how does the church help people in Redwood City?
Well, we have are they called help bags? Or hope bags, which we fill with stuff and we kind of pass them out to the homeless and stuff.
Harper, didn't your mother organize a big program for the school kids in the fall? Tell us about that.
Yeah, my mom, like, she noticed at the school that my sister goes to, they are required to wear uniforms. And so some people can't afford to buy new ones like each year, or if they grow out of them, they still have to wear them. So we started, I think, with just uniforms. But then we also, like, I know a lot of my teachers buy school supplies for the classrooms with their own money. So we collected crayons and markers, glue sticks, pencils. We packaged it up and sent it to different schools that we thought were in need in Redwood City.
I was hoping to volunteer this summer with my friend, actually. So, and I think there's so many benefits to it. Like, it looks good on college applications. You help the community. You're not bored all summer. So I think it would be really helpful if more people volunteered.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Harper, What do you think you could do to make Redwood City a better place?
Well, I know there's like a lot of organizations and programs that you can volunteer with, which would get you out in the community. And I heard of one at I think it's Palo Alto Medical Foundation, and it's like you have to do an outreach project, and it's like a summer program. So probably volunteering and just meeting more people that are like not like you, and yeah, that come from different backgrounds, because Redwood City is really diverse.
Now, narrowing this down even further, what do you think would make St. Peter's a better church?
Well, St. Peter's is very good the way it is, but I would say I would try to encourage families with children to come to church and experience the church every week instead of some families only come on holidays. And I just think it would be beneficial for the church to have more families.
Well, I know I have friends that are my age that I'm really close to, but I'm not really I don't really know people that aren't my age. I've talked to them, but I'm not really close to them. So I think if people of different ages and backgrounds maybe, because everyone kind of has their comfort zone, so everyone has the people that they're most comfortable with. But I feel like if we go out of that and we talk to other people and get to know other people, then it'll be more like a community and everyone will be more connected.
I would have to agree with Ben saying we need more families coming more regularly, because there's not that many now, and we could probably do this by telling them or telling more families about St. Peter's.
And how do you think we could go about getting more of them?
I think that if we just appeal to them somehow, which seems really obvious, but I think that the idea of church seems like a chore and like a hassle, but I actually really enjoy coming to church. So if we could just figure out a way to show them that it's fun and stuff, I think that'd be helpful.
The youth of St. Peter's recognize that the community's needs are increasing, and the parents and adults of the parish are equally aware that the parish's outreach ministry must grow in the years ahead.
The other thing that I'm loving watching develop is the kids on Sunday morning. The kids have a sense of social justice that I've never seen before, and that I certainly did not have as a child. I don't know about you, but this was not what I was taught in Sunday school, was not social justice. I had to memorize psalms and things. But these kids are learning social justice, and they are ready to get out there and do things. So last year they put together backpacks, they put together hope bags that we carry in our cars and we give out to homeless people when we see them on the street or somebody begging on the street. We've got something to hand them instead of money. They've always got some idea and they're always working on something. And so this year, because it's our 150th anniversary, they decided they were going to get 150 backpacks together. And they're going to get 150, packages of pencils and 150 hand sanitizers to put in there, and 150 this and 150 that.
The history of what's happened in churches, people graduate. And, like church schools once had many students. Well, in our day and age, what happens Sunday morning? Soccer practice. How are you going to say to a kid, we're going to church today, but Mom, I've got soccer, I can't do. So there you are. So I can sympathize with all parishes to know, but I find that the Lord weeds and the remaining people that are there are so joyful, and in retirement, I've supplied 55 different parishes now, and many of them over and again. And I find this joy, and I find this caring. The outreach is so immense everywhere. Everywhere I go, I have to take my canned goods. I don't have to, I take them, because that's part of what we do, is our stewardship of what God gives us. And it's something to pray for the poor, but what do we do about it?
So part of the work of the clergy, in my view, is to help keep the congregation involved in ways that it's looking outward as well as looking inward. I mean, there's always the problem of how do we keep the roof from falling in on us? But there's also who in the community needs help that we can provide in some way, who in the diocese needs help that we can provide in some way, so that it's a two-way communication, or at least two-way communication, multi-path communication.
Because there's a big gray area, there's a big jump from where people are in their lives right now and their ability to engage a spiritual conversation and a spiritual journey. And what I found at St. Peter's was that where you bridge that gap is in service and in, well, in particular serving the poor, which St. Peter's has a tremendous opportunity to do, because there are probably larger pockets of poverty in the Redwood City, East Menlo Park, East Palo Alto area of the peninsula than anywhere else on the peninsula.
We are embedded in this community. We've been here for a long, long time, and I think that's a wonderful thing. People know who we are, they know where we're at, and we know the community as well, and so we know the people around us.
Like particularly Redwood City has changed quite a bit in that it really grew a lot more. There's just a lot more population here, and all the different nationalities that are here now that weren't here in such prominence before. So that's changed a lot. It really has changed. But I think there's a lot more need in the community now because of the recession that hasn't ever gotten back to where it should be. And I think there's a lot of things that actually maybe St. Peter's could be involved in if there were enough people to help with some other things. I know we do outreach to the Maple Street Shelter and some other things like that, but I think there's some more places that maybe we could put our efforts.
You know what strikes me as I was going through the archives and as you're asking that is in the 50s and 60s there was a robust congregation, and I realize that things in our culture have changed over the years, and I'm not sure there are many churches that have a robust congregation, but they had fashion shows, there are a lot of women's events, and a lot of activities that were written up in the paper and that people from outside St. Peter's were invited to, and we do some of those things. But I wonder if and I know when we were on the vestry, we talked about this, how do we get to connect with the community? And like having speakers during campaigns come in, and we've done that a few times, and just kind of see if we can get our name out there more to integrate with the community.
What I would like to see in the near future is to just try out different things and see what really resonates, and then see what resonates, and then really try to gather everybody and get everybody involved.
Looking at St. Peter's, since I've come back and been a little more part of it and reading your newsletter and everything, I always had to smile when people say, well, of course, we're such a small congregation. I wonder what would happen if the 12 apostles said, I don't think we're going to make it, there are only 12 of us.
What I've experienced at St. Peter's with different service projects is that if you make the service project simple and you make it something that everybody can participate in different ways, like when we did the backpacks and the school supplies, some people gave money, some people took that as an opportunity to go shopping for school supplies with their younger kids. Some people just handed us big bags of supplies. So everybody could do it in a different way, and it didn't have to be at a certain time. That was really successful.
Well, I just know there's a lot more homeless people around, and that there isn't housing for them. And I don't know what to do about getting housing for them, but I feel bad that they don't have anywhere to go. And I wish that we could do something like that. Possibly there might even be some places where we could help with children who are trying to find their way, children who might not have a loving family at home to guide them. They may get into gangs or something, and I don't know what we could do, but it would be great to be able to offer a service of some kind that would reach out to these young people and basically give them some love.
I do think that I would tend to say, and this is just the way I think about doing work in the community, it's always best to try to connect to efforts that perhaps already exist rather than trying to create something ourselves. So perhaps we have an idea and then we think, oh yeah, well let's create this event or let's create this activity. Usually there's somebody else that perhaps is already doing that. So rather than inventing it ourselves, I think the way to go is figure out how do we connect and add value to what else is already happening.
I think one of the big significant things is the awareness of lay people and for the ministry of lay people. Because people used to, I remember people always used to refer to anybody who was, not all, but some, who was the priest of the church, he's our minister, you know.
Yeah.
And so I keep emphasizing, and even when at the 4 retirement homes I go to regularly, I keep saying to them, you know, of course, every one of you, I presume, are baptized. If you are baptized, then you've been made a minister for Christ.
I think there's just a lot of potential. I mean, we have kind of a small group that is very tight-knit, and I think there's a lot we can do. Whatever we want to do, we can do. And I think we just need to change our perspective a little bit to be more thinking about how does the community need us? How can we be indispensable to the community? We do a good job taking care of ourselves and nourishing ourselves. And if we take that out in the world, I think it's gonna help each of us in different ways, and it's gonna help the community, which is what we want to do.
Where will St. Peter's go on the next stage of its journey? Our direction will surely be influenced by the 150 years of history that has brought us to this current milepost. For 150 years, our parish has welcomed our neighbors. We've worked hard to help make Redwood City a better place. Today is a time of change and challenge, just like 1864 and 1914 and 1964. But St. Peter's Church is still a place where all are welcome as we join together on our spiritual journey, today and always.
I believe that. I really, in my heart, believe that we are creating the kingdom of God here. That is our work. That is our ministry.
Sometimes I would come into the church when I'd come to prepare a kid if I had to go out and be all quiet in there on a weekday. If I had to go do a hospital visit, I could look out and I can see Jessie Felcher, who lived to be 102, and I can remember the choir loft when it was full of people, and there's a song that the kids had that they used to sing, well, we do once in a while, called I Sing a Song of the Saints of God, and I thought, I can look out there and see all these people, you know, and even up into more modern times like Ann Anderson and Kay Bunyan and all the people that really kept things going and held it together. And I said, those are the saints of God.